Okay, so you've heard a little something about ozempic, wegovy, and the gang, a group of utterly revolutionary large molecules that can help aid in really significant weight loss through a series of injections helping to curb appetite and slow gastric emptying, making you feel fuller for longer. Well, wouldn't it be neat if this came as a tablet? Certainly, the big players in the space, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, think so, and today's question is, how far are we from seeing them come to market? To explore this question, we first have to understand the lengthy process by which new drugs are brought to market. It starts by discovering a new molecule, check. Then you have to produce it in sufficient amounts and put it into a lab animal to test its safety in non-human mammals. Then you give it to a small number of fit and healthy, usually male study volunteers and look for evidence of harm in humans. This is phase 1 of the 3-step human trial process. Next, phase 2 involves you giving it to study participants who have the disease you're aiming to get approval for treating to check its safety in this cohort. And phase 3 then checks for the effectiveness in this cohort. Each stage gets progressively larger, involving initially tens or hundreds, then hundreds, and then potentially thousands of participants in a phase 3 trial. And this is where both Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk are at for their leading candidate molecules for oral GLP-1 agonists, i.e. the final stage before submitting an application for FDA approval. So, as mentioned, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk are the market leaders in this space. Eli Lilly produces mounjaro and Zepbound and has one drug in phase 3 trials called Orforglipron. And the phase 3 trials on this molecule began back in June of 2023, with the results coming out from last month and expected to keep rolling in for the rest of the year and the start of next, after which we may see it launched as an oral medication for both diabetes and weight loss if it performs well. Their big competitor in the space, Novo Nordisk, which is famous for Ozempic and Wegovy, actually already has an oral GLP-1 agonist medication FDA approved, but only for the management of diabetes. It's called Rybelsus, and it comes with a somewhat sinister warning re dose-related concerns of causing or worsening thyroid cancers. Given that in injectable form, the weight loss drug is usually the same molecule but in a higher dose as the anti-diabetic medication drug, this may end up prohibiting Rybelsus from being used as an oral tablet for weight loss. We shall wait and see. So more on Eli Lilly and what they're doing with their phase 3 trials looking at Orforglipron as a daily oral medication for both blood sugar control and body weight control in obesity. These are the results from the only published phase 3 trial called Achieve-1, linked down below. It's from a company press release posted on their website on April 17th, 2025, with a peer-reviewed publication stated to be on its way too. The trial involved a 40-week placebo-controlled randomized control trial of 559 participants across the USA, Japan, China, and India, split into 4 evenly sized groups, each receiving one of the dosing regimes here in the table. All of the participants had a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes and had taken no anti-diabetic medications for 90 days prior to starting and had never been on insulin. A1C, or HbA1c, is a measure of average blood sugar content over the lifespan of a red blood cell, or around the last 90 days. As we can see in that top line, the medicine seems to provide a reasonably consistent reduction in blood sugar compared with placebo across the doses trialled. As for weight loss, with the important caveat of not yet knowing how the medication goes in non-diabetic patients, we can see an increase in effectiveness as doses increase from left to right, culminating in an almost 8% reduction in body weight for trial participants on the 36 milligram daily dose. Now, we'd also like to see that broken out into muscle mass versus fat mass in future, but we don't have that information available. If these numbers are replicated in non-diabetics, it would make 36 milligrams of daily oral Orforglipron about half as effective as 1 year of mounjaro, but roughly as effective as 1 year of Saxenda. Now, what else do we know about the trials? We know that Eli Lilly have over 6,000 people enrolled in the Achieve phase 3 trial that is investigating Orforglipron as a diabetes medicine, and state that their intention is to publish the rest of the data in late 25 and early 26. They're also running their phase 3 trials investigating its efficacy as a weight management drug under the trial name Attain, which has over 3,000 people enrolled, and expect to submit data to the FDA and other global regulatory bodies before the end of 2025. Meaning that if the trials continue to come in with positive results and the FDA are happy with what they see, Eli Lilly will likely be bringing an oral weight loss drug to market around the middle of 2026, bearing in mind the timelines of getting FDA approval of around 6 to 10 months. Next, Novo Nordisk, and the first thing to note here is they've been a lot quieter with their press releases of late. Firstly, Rybelsus. It's an oral formulation of Novo Nordisk's semaglutide molecule, which has proven itself effective time and time again in injection form under 2 different doses and brands, Ozempic and Wegovy, for diabetes and weight loss. It's already out there in the US and Europe and works, though the weight loss effects appear to be about half of that of Wegovy. So it is already out there. Clinical studies have found that increasing the dose increased the weight loss achieved, with one 68-week study finding a 50 milligram daily oral dose leading to 15% weight loss, again linked down below, or a 6 to 7% weight loss over a year in people with diabetes in the STEP trial. However, in animal studies, higher doses seem to correlate with increased risk of thyroid cancers, so time will tell whether a high dose formulation is ever brought out and deemed to be sufficiently safe. Next, we have their candidate drug currently in phase 3 trials for obesity treatment. Perhaps the most brilliantly and imaginatively named pick of the bunch, NN9932. And basically, there is almost no information online about what it is, and I couldn't find a single Novo Nordisk press release on this one. Instead, industry news sources simply state that it's an oral weight loss medication currently going through stage 3 trials that may be released towards the end of 2025, without any robust referencing, pending successful trials and approval. But as we enter June and no phase 3 clinical trial results have been published, it seems unlikely this will land before 2026. Next, the best of the rest. On April 14, 2025, Pfizer announced the termination of the development of an attempt at an oral obesity medication after their molecule, named danuglipron, was found to damage the livers of the participants of a phase 2 trial. This is not the first time it's happened, but it means that they are at least several years away from bringing a product to market. On the other hand, industry news reports cite the possibility of a Chinese candidate called HRS9531, which has published positive phase 2 trial outcomes back in June 2024. But the problem here is that whoever was reporting this failed to perform their due diligence, and this drug is in fact a subcut injectable that works on both the GLP-1 agonist route and the GIP route, like Eli Lilly's powerful injectable Zepbound, and therefore not relevant to today's conversation. And that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. The top and bottom of it is this: Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk are at or around the final hurdle, and if they successfully vault it, oral weight loss medications of the GLP-1 agonist variety will be with us around early to mid-2026. Just to reiterate, I have no financial skin in the game whatsoever, and don't know of anyone who does. Though, as Eli Lilly's stocks jumped 14% when they released their results back in April, I kinda wish I did have some skin in that game. Anywho, this is not me advising any particular viewer to hop onto Orforglipron or any of the other molecules discussed. Heck, we didn't even get into the weeds of side effects and risks of these medications. It's simply me sharing what I've learnt from a deep dive into declarations made by the leading pharmaceutical companies and news sources covering them around oral weight loss management drugs. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing.